The Drummer and the Great Mountain, a podcast where we share effective tips and practices for working with adult ADD, ADHD in a natural, effective way without the use of medications. Each episode, join me, your host, Batman Saram, along with the author of The Drummer and the Great Mountain, Michael Joseph Ferguson. Join Michael and myself in an interactive discussion of sharing our stories as we journey together in transforming what can be the gift of being what we call hunter types. This podcast is intended to be your audio companion to the book written by Michael, who joins me each episode where we both will strive to foster dialogue, give you our personal insights, and share both of our experiences on this similar path that we are all on. Our intention and hope is that along with the book, this podcast gives you an additional perspective as you listen to us delve deeper into each chapter of the book to give you even more tools to go along with what it is that you are reading. Visit us at drummerandthegreatmountain.com to purchase the book and look for more tools, tips, and updates, as well as giving us feedback on this podcast. Join our growing global community of creative types, entrepreneurs, and out-of-the-box thinkers on our shared journey. Welcome to The Drummer and the Great Mountain podcast.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Michael Joseph Ferguson. Hope you're all doing well. In today's episode, we will be talking about brainwaves and ADHD, and how to use strategies and techniques to move in between these different brain states. So we will be going in depth into the 5 main brain waves, what it feels like to experience them, how they're really intrinsic to both our challenges and strengths with ADHD as hunter types. And most importantly, we're going to discuss some biohacks, strategies to more easily move in between these states as needed. And that is not always easy, but there are definitely proven ways to do this. And I've also provided a super useful PDF cheat sheet for this episode that shows you all of the brainwave states and techniques on how to achieve them. And so that is available for you to print out, because this is going to be an information-dense episode that's, I think, going to be very helpful to you. There's going to be some aha moments for most of you, I would predict. I've never seen this information all put into one place. And I did a lot of research going into this. I've been wanting to do this episode for at least the last couple years. And so I have a feeling that there's going to be some insights that hopefully lead you into doing some of your own research and possibly contributing back to the collective knowledge on this, because this research is still very much in its infancy. So I want to encourage you to listen to this episode, possibly a few times, take some notes, download the PDF, and then go do your own research, because there's a lot here that could be both beneficial for you and for others. And I think it's going to take a collective effort to continually refine these strategies so we understand how best to support not only us, but also future generations that struggle the same way we struggle. So to get the PDF cheat sheet, you just go to drummerandthegreatmountain.com/episode 115. That's episode 115, all lowercase, no space. And I will put a link in the description for you on that as well. So we're excited to announce a brand new workshop. We've had many requests for this. In fact, this is the number one request I get as a life coach, is supporting people in dialing in their health and wellness routine. So the reality is we all have sensitive brain chemistry, and when we have an optimized health routine, it can have a major impact on our productivity, our mental clarity, and our overall well-being. And as we'll discuss in this episode, minor adjustments to our diet and exercise can have major results. And these actually affect our brain waves and ability to focus, along with reducing overwhelm and distractibility. So the reality is most of us really struggle with keeping with a consistent wellness routine. We know what we need to do, but we don't always do it. So the primary focus of this workshop is to help you start these habits during the span of the workshop. So we'll cover identifying the best exercise routine for you that is sustainable, how a higher protein, low carb diet with healthy fats can support better brain functioning and reduce your ADHD challenges, how to simplify and streamline meal preparation and shopping. That's a big one. Building your health and wellness support system so that you are not just relying on your own willpower. You've got a support system around you. Improving your sleep by dialing in your evening routine and identifying those habits that are working against you. So you'll be able to connect with people from around the world that listen to this podcast. And for the first time, we'll also be putting together an optional buddy support system that can provide support long after the workshop is completed. We'll also have a private discussion group to stay connected with the community, and all sessions will be recorded and available in case you can't attend all of the live sessions. So this is a live online workshop, and it starts April 5th. So I hope you can join us. If you're interested, go to drummerinthegreatmountain.com/workshop or check the link in the description. Okay, so let's start with problem and solution. So what is the problem? So the problem is that we tend to have less beta wave activity and more theta wave activity. And this leads us to challenges with focus, executive functioning tasks, flooding, time blindness. All those things can be traced back to this particular condition, which we could also then connect with us having less dopamine receptors than the general population. So what is the solution? So one very important solution could be understanding the different brain wave states. What do they feel like? What is the experience like? What are you best suited to do in that particular brainwave state? And what strategies can be used to predictably help you move in between these brain states so you can do what you want to do when you want to do it. So what exactly are brainwaves? So brainwaves are measured by a device called an EEG or an electroencephalogram. And what it's doing is measuring the electrical activity in your brain. And specifically, what it's looking for is the collective firing of neurons at a specific rate. So this is measured in hertz. So that's cycles per second. So when we're talking about different brain waves like gamma and beta and alpha, these are the collective firing of neurons in your brain at a specific rate. This is the dominant detected firing of these neurons. So when we're talking about beta waves or gamma waves, even though we're saying, okay, you're in this gamma state or you're in beta, there's other brain waves happening at the same time. It's the dominant brainwave state that we're talking about. More importantly, each of these brainwave states map to a specific subjective experience of how you are using your brain at that particular moment. That's the most important piece of this whole puzzle. So as we move through our discussion on brainwaves, there's going to be specific activities and things you can do to move in between these brain states. And so we'll be talking about exercise, nutrition. We'll talk about listening to music, sound, drumming, binaural beats, movement like rhythmic dance, neurofeedback, breathwork, chanting and toning. There are many strategies to help you move in between these different brain states. So there are 5 main brain waves, and they're named gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and delta. As a rule of thumb, the faster the frequency, the more alert you are, and the slower the frequency, the least alert you are. So gamma waves tend to be associated with high alertness, and delta waves are deep sleep. So as you're listening to me go through each of these different brain wave states, you may want to grab that PDF so you can follow along as you're looking at the PDF. That might be helpful to you. Again, go to drummerinthegreatmountain.com/episode 115 to take a look at that. Let's start with gamma. So gamma, let's call this peak performance. So when you have predominant gamma waves, you are in peak performance. The frequency range is 30 to 100 plus hertz. And what are the qualities of this? So when you're experiencing gamma, this is the fastest frequency. This is high-level information processing. This is often called the flow state. So when you're in gamma, you're in that kind of peak performance flow state. It's a lot of what athletes really strive to get into gamma. I would say when we are in hyper-focus mode, when we are just flowing and time passes by without you thinking about it, chances are you had a higher level of gamma waves happening in that moment. So it's flow states, heightened perception linked to cognitive clarity and rapid problem solving. Someone who gives you someone who gives a deeply emotionally connected experience as an actor is often in a gamma state when they're doing that. It's often connected to a euphoric state. Hyper-focus without effort is one way to describe it. It is not common in daily life. So these are peak experiences. We float in and out of gamma in bursts. We don't tend to stay in it for long periods of time. So unlike alpha or beta waves, which fluctuate constantly, gamma appears in bursts when the brain is making powerful connections. So again, I know this experience myself. When you've had that like aha moment, that's gamma. That's when you're in that gamma state. The average person experiences gamma waves only briefly throughout the day. So moments when gamma waves spike include experiencing deep emotions like love, awe, and gratitude, listening to profoundly moving music when you have that song that just transforms you. Chances are your gamma activity is higher in that moment. Solving complex problems or having that aha moment. Spiritual or mystical experiences are connected to gamma waves. And engaging in intense focus like deep meditation, flow states in sports or music, performing music, also can correlate with gamma waves. It is heightened sensory perception. So colors seem more vivid, sound becomes more detailed, music feels deeply moving on an emotional level, and a greatly enhanced experience of appreciating life. That is all gamma. And it is, as I've been doing the research, it really is connected to emotions. It seems to be one of the threads that goes throughout a lot of the research that I found is that gamma waves are connected to that heightened sense of life, like when you're really in tune with things, and it is often connected with pleasant, heightened emotions. So it's really feeling completely in the moment. It is that experience of losing track of time, often relates to being in gamma. So gamma waves are interesting because what they find is people who have Alzheimer's tend to have less gamma activity. And as a result, what they find is gamma waves tend to clear out amyloid plaque, which is the buildup of that is what causes Alzheimer's. So they've tested out different ways of inducing gamma waves in Alzheimer's patients to support them in the brain in naturally clearing out that amyloid plaque. And they did this through exposing patients to a flashing light that was flickering in the gamma frequency of 30 to 100 times per second. And they found that red and white light was most effective in inducing gamma waves. So clearly, gamma wave activity is something I think we'd all want more of that flow state, more of that euphoric, heightened experience. And within sports, there's been a lot of studies done on what can support that. So let's go through the list. So in terms of meditation can definitely support gamma wave activity. And what I found most interesting was they found the greatest increase in gamma wave activity with Buddhist monks that practice loving kindness meditation, also known as metta, M-E-T-T-A. And primarily what you're doing in this type of meditation is you're cultivating the experience of loving kindness towards yourself or other beings. So one of my meditation teachers, Ajahn Brahm, who comes out of the Thai forest tradition of Buddhist meditation, talks about how you start with practicing, giving you something that kind of gives you an on-ramp to loving kindness. So that may be you visualizing caring for an infant, or caring for even like a puppy or a kitten, something that kind of triggers that feeling of loving kindness inside of you is basically what the meditation is about. It's like, how do you cultivate that experience? And what they find is when they've tracked these Buddhist monks that have gone very deep into this practice, they can go into it very quickly. They have higher gamma wave activity. Also, they found that visualization can be helpful in inducing more gamma wave activity. So specifically imagining success, joy, physical health, healing. Also pulling in the positive psychology work. So positive psychology is a burgeoning field inside of psychology, which is talking about and working on how do you support overall emotional well-being, what can do that. What they find is practicing awe and wonder, especially going out into nature and really saying, okay, my intention is to experience more awe and wonder with everything around me, can also induce gamma wave activity. So these different types of meditation support the overall likelihood that you will experience more gamma wave activity. And that can result in, again, more peak performance, more flow state. It's something that we all want to have happen. So that's meditation. That's the top of the list in terms of things you can do to support gamma wave activity. Also, in terms of exercise, high intensity workouts can also support gamma wave activity. Activities that engage your refined skill set. So if you're a musician, obviously playing more music and getting into that flow state supports gamma wave activity. If you're into sports or rock climbing or something like that, when you're in that flow state, when you've said, okay, I'm going to accomplish this particular task, and you've given yourself the conditions for utilizing your skills that you've already practiced, can also support gamma wave activities. In terms of nutrition, we're talking about emphasizing antioxidants, dark chocolate, berries, omega-3 fatty acids, anything that supports your optimal neural functioning can support gamma wave activity. And as I mentioned before, listening to emotional music, music that really moves you, also can support gamma wave activity. Studies of Tibetan monks have shown that chanting also increased their gamma states. Practicing a new skill intensely may also support gamma wave activity. That's like if you're a musician, learning a new song that you're really engaged with, writing, creating, all those activities, the newness of them may also support gamma wave activity. I know that experience really well, and you kind of know it when you're in it. I know many of you are hearing this going, yeah, I know that feeling. One other thing is in terms of breath work, deep rhythmic breathing increases oxygenation and coherence in the brain and may also support gamma wave activity. Now, I want to talk about two other strategies that will support gamma that also may support some of the other brainwave states as well. The first one, and most common when we're talking about brainwaves and ADHD, is neurofeedback. So neurofeedback, for those of you who don't know, it's a brain training technique that uses real-time EEG data to help individuals consciously regulate their brainwave activity for improved cognitive and emotional functioning. And neurofeedback can come in many different forms. There are consumer devices available that I know some of you have been playing with because I've worked with some of you that have them. And there's also services that use more sophisticated devices combined with some kind of therapy to support, specifically with ADHD, supporting the brainwave activity that tends to be less dominant. Mostly beta waves, I would say, is the most common use of neurofeedback. So in terms of neurofeedback and gamma waves, there's mixed results in terms of studies. It can support gamma wave activity. It is not its strong suit from everything that I've researched, but it definitely needs to be noted. The other technique that is often talked about is binaural beats. And so binaural beats are an auditory illusion created when two slightly different frequencies are played in each ear, producing a perceived third tone that may influence brainwave activity. Now, some people really swear by binaural beats. If you go on YouTube, you'll find a ton of videos where you pop on your headset, or there's apps available where you can listen to binaural beats. And with mixed results. So it's something that you may want, like, have it in your toolkit, test it out, see if it works for you. In terms of gamma, there's not as many positive studies that show that it can influence gamma activity, but it may. So it's on the list. Test it out. It may be something you want to explore. Okay, so that was gamma waves. Let's move on to beta waves. And this is probably the most important brain state that we can talk about when we're talking about ADHD, because we tend to have less beta wave activity. And the result of this is a lot of the challenges that are most common to us. So let's call beta waves active focus, and let's put an emphasis on the word active, or there's effort involved in doing this. The frequency range is 12 to 30 hertz, and the qualities of beta wave activity are focused attention, active thinking, alertness, executive functioning in terms of planning and decision making. That is beta. Beta is that state that when we're in it, we're like, oh, thank God I can actually get stuff done, because it's really challenging for us to do those kinds of tasks when we're not in that brain state. So lower beta wave activity is common for ADHD. Excessive beta wave activity can lead to tension and anxiety. So too much beta wave activity leads to anxiety. So again, it's not like one state is better than any other state. They have specific purposes, and there's certain times when you want to be in beta, and there's times when you don't want to be in beta. So how do we get there? So much of what we talk about on this podcast are the strategies to support beta wave activity. So let's start with the top one: exercise, regular cardio exercise. I would say ideally 15 minutes a day or 30-minute sessions a few times a week can support more beta wave activity. From a breath work perspective, box breathing, so that's breathing in for 4, holding for 4, releasing for 4, holding for 4. That kind of breathing can also support beta wave activity. In terms of nutrition, you want to make sure you're getting enough protein. That's going to support your beta wave activity. B vitamins, omega-3s, once again, shows up. There's also the common suggestion of limiting sugar and processed foods in your diet may also support you having more beta wave activity, because they tend to dull us. They tend to get us into that state where we go up and down. And so beta wave activity is going to be affected by your diet. In terms of meditation, we want to think about meditation practices that you're focusing on a specific point. So a meditation practice could be focusing on your breath. It could be focusing on your navel as your breath moves in and out. What we're doing is we're training your brain to focus on one thing and one thing only. So you're focusing on your breath, you lose your focus, you come back to the breath, you lose your focus, you come back to the breath. That practice over time is like weightlifting for your brain, so that you can move into a focused attention state, beta waves, when you choose to. So again, meditation is like the weightlifting you need to move in and out of beta waves more effectively. Now, in terms of breath work, there are yoga breathing techniques that can support beta wave activity. Specifically, they find rapid forceful exhalations through the nose, followed by passive inhalations, can also support beta wave activity. So that's the breathwork part of it. In terms of neurofeedback, this is really where neurofeedback and ADHD go together, because one of the prime focuses of ADHD support with neurofeedback is to help your brain move more effortlessly into beta wave activity. So you'll be given a game or some kind of feedback mechanism that's going to show you, here's your brain state in any given moment. And so if you're moving into beta waves, it's going to detect, the device is going to detect, okay, you're in beta wave right now, and there'll be some kind of visual feedback to let you know that. And it's going to start training your brain to continually come back into that state over and over. And so cumulatively, over time, neurofeedback has been shown to support greater beta wave activity and your ability to move in and out of it more effectively. So as we're talking about beta wave activity, we should mention stimulants as well. So stimulants induce beta wave activity. That's what they do. So if you're taking a substance that supports your focus for a certain period of time, that is going to correlate to increased beta wave activity, whether it's caffeine or whether that is something like an ADHD medication. You can, in that same category, you're looking at the stronger things that we can become addicted to, like cocaine, methamphetamines. All those things also support beta wave activity. And I think it's important to take a step back and think about how we got here in terms of society. Human society shifted drastically with the introduction of caffeine into our collective diet. And in doing so, it placed a massive and arguably more important emphasis on beta wave activity as a collective. So the Industrial Revolution and onward has been marked by an excessive emphasis on beta wave activity. And as we'll discuss, other brain states are equally important to our overall well-being. So as we're discussing all these different brain states, I think it's important to remember that they're all there for a reason, and that in beta wave activity is great to focus on, but it should not be the only brain state that we care about as we're working on an ADHD support plan. Okay, so let's move on to alpha brainwaves. So let's call alpha brainwaves relaxed alertness. That is the best way to put the experience of being in alpha. Frequency range is 8 to 12 hertz, and the qualities are calm alertness. It is often a state associated with meditation. As you come out of a meditation and you feel that sense of calm and peace, but alert, that is alpha. Often in this state, you have access to your subconscious. Maybe your intuition is connected in with this a bit. There tends to be creative insights that kind of bubble up as a result of being in alpha. It fosters imaginative thinking. And what's interesting about alpha is that visual processing specifically becomes more active when you're in alpha. So it's also a state where you are actively reducing your stress. So it promotes a state of inner peace and balance, restful state that often supports preparation for sleep. So when you think of someone in lotus position, meditating, alpha is kind of the most associated with that state, that kind of meditative, focused, but calm state. That's alpha. And I know growing up, when we were talking about meditation, we would always say, well, let's get into alpha. Alpha was sort of the reference point for meditation. So how do we attain the state of alpha? So alpha is very much needed for our overall well-being. And often we will try to go straight from beta or theta straight into sleep, but alpha is this sort of really nice, sweet middle place that creates more calm and peace. So how do we get there? Meditation, number one, mindfulness practices that cultivate a relaxed, focused state. Neurofeedback, once again, can be very helpful in supporting alpha brainwaves, another, and I would say probably the precursor to any of the work done on ADHD. Neurofeedback was probably most focused on getting people into alpha. And I think as it progressed and as ADHD became more of something that was studied, then it moved more into that. But I would say alpha, in terms of a lot of these biofeedback, neurofeedback devices, was the focus. In terms of exercise and movement, gentle, mindful exercise can support this. So in terms of gentle yoga, that might be restorative yoga or yin yoga, walking in nature, tai chi, all can promote physical and mental relaxation, which as a result supports alpha wave activities. In terms of nutrition, we are looking at having a balanced intake of complex carbohydrates, making sure you're well hydrated, and you have gut healthy foods to support calm alertness. So basically, you want to avoid things that are going to pull you out of that state. But in general, complex carbohydrates, they're calming versus proteins that tend to be, as a rough analysis, a little bit more stimulating. In terms of breath work, things that could support alpha are heart rhythm meditation. So synchronizing your breath with your heartbeat can promote this kind of coherence that supports alpha wave activity. So that is alpha. Alpha is really much anything when you think about mindfulness practices and you think about yoga and you think about meditation, the state of being you're aiming for often is alpha. Okay, so let's move on to theta brainwaves. So theta brainwaves are home turf for us. This is our most dominant brainwave state for us hunter types, for us people with ADHD. Theta is most common, is the more dominant brainwave state for us in waking consciousness. So let's talk about it. So let's call theta brainwaves daydreaming and inward awareness. This frequency range is 5 to 8 hertz. And the qualities of theta are drifting internal focus with an emphasis on drifting, access to deep-seated memories and emotions. It is connected to imaginative thought and visualization. Again, kind of dreamlike. Things are flooding together. I think you guys are starting to get the picture. A deep sense of tranquility and mental stillness, bridge between light sleep and waking. So it's daydreaming. It's that you guys know this one because you're in it most of the time. It's very daydreamy. It's distractible. Things blur together. And as a result, this is also a very creative state. So when we're in this state, we can make connections with things. It's kind of a floaty state that we like being in. We tend to be in, whether we like it or not. So as we're talking about theta waves, I want to give an interesting note that there could be a connection between having more dominant theta wave activity and negative self-talk. So there was a study done on monkeys, which I first off just do not support testing on animals. And I also want to just offer this because it is interesting information. They would train monkeys to do a specific task and they would track their brainwave activity. When the monkey got the task correct, there was more beta wave activity. When the monkey got the task wrong, there was more theta wave activity. So given we tend to be more in theta wave activity, there's most likely a correlation between negative self-talk and theta waves. Please research this further. That's as far as I could go in my research in prepping for this. So if you have any information on this, please share it with me, info@drummerandthegreatmountain.com, or reply to any social media posts you see on this. I would love to hear some feedback on that. But I think that's a very important note as it relates to one of our biggest challenges, which is negative self-talk. So theta wave activity, it's the most common waking brain state for people with ADHD. And I think you can understand the connection here. So it's dreamy. It's that daydreamy space. Things can come to us in that state. We can make connections with things, so things kind of blur together. But as a result of that, because it is a little harder for us to move into beta wave activity to get stuff done, theta brainwaves are not the best state to be in to get day-to-day tasks done, executive functioning done. It's much harder. We're swimming upstream when we're trying to do those tasks when we're in theta. So it's important to recognize when you're in it, and then to use some of those strategies I mentioned before. If you need to get executive functioning tasks done, planning done, that kind of focused attention, then you need to look at some of those things that I mentioned in terms of supporting beta wave activity, but also not throw away the fact that theta is also a very useful brain state as well. So how do we attain it? Well, in terms of meditation, this is sort of a relaxed meditation, things like guided imagery, hypnotherapy, having a quiet, dim, relaxed environment supports theta wave activity. In terms of exercise, gentle, repetitive movements like nature walks and walking barefoot have been shown to support theta wave activity. So you know that space of just being outside or just laying out and you're kind of just in nature and everything's kind of floaty and it feels really good, that you're in theta when you're in that. In terms of nutrition, tryptophan-rich foods can support theta wave activity. Making sure you're well hydrated and avoiding stimulants and heavy meals will support you in having more theta wave activity. In terms of breath work, observing your natural breath without manipulation can support theta wave activity. Neurofeedback has also been shown to be effective in moving into theta. So that is also a known support system for theta wave activity. I think many of you are listening going, yes, I already am in theta. Why do I need to be in theta? What do I need to do? So again, these are broad descriptions of very refined brain states. So this is not, it's important to recognize that we float in and out of these as we go through the day. We float through gamma and beta and alpha and theta, but understanding when you're in them and recognizing it can be really helpful, because you can say, oh, I'm kind of in this sort of daydreamy state and I really need to get these tasks done. Here are some activities that would support this. Whereas I'm really stressed and I'm overly focused and I'm anxious, then some of these other brain states are going to be supportive, specifically alpha and theta. And finally, we've arrived at delta waves. So delta waves, let's call this state of being deep sleep and restorative. The frequency range is 0.5 to 4 hertz. And we're talking about unconscious, deep, dreamless, restorative sleep. That's delta. So it's unconscious, it's deep relaxation, it's the slowest frequency, it is the most relaxed that your physical body can be. It is unaffected by external stimuli. You are out. And this is also a state really important for physical restoration. This is body repair and healing. This is also going to support your brain in restoring itself and like getting rid of the toxins, clearing out unneeded material in your brain. All that kind of mechanism that happens to clear your brain out needs delta sleep, delta brainwaves. So how do we get there? So to attain that, we're talking about how do we get to good deep sleep? Keeping a good schedule in terms of a sleep schedule can definitely support delta wave activity. Having a dark, cool, quiet room. In terms of meditation, pre-sleep, you can do some relaxation techniques, sleep meditation, yoga nidra. That practice can also very much support delta wave activity. In terms of movement, some stretching before going to sleep may support greater delta wave activity once you fall asleep. In terms of nutrition, avoiding late night meals and stimulants, prioritizing sleep promoting foods high in calcium and or magnesium also can support delta wave activity. Herbal teas like chamomile, passion flower, valerian all may also support more delta wave activity once you fall asleep. So delta wave activity is that restorative sleep. And for many of us, that is really challenging because we may be deficient in delta wave activity. And so because our brain is not going through its natural cleansing function at night, because we didn't get enough sleep or we didn't dip into those delta waves, that can have an impact on our focus, our ability to move through the day. It's going to affect our mood and emotions. So delta wave activity is important to recognize. We're not going to be able to track it consciously, but it is important to recognize that all of these states, so going from gamma to beta to alpha to theta and to delta, all these brain states are important for our overall well-being. None is more important than the other. So recognizing this, it's almost like you have this nutrition plan for your brain. And as you move through the day, you want to know that you've got each of these brain states supported in some way. Gamma probably being the most challenging to support because it's the most elusive, but in terms of alpha and theta and beta and delta, those we have more control over as a general rule of thumb. So those are the 5 brain states and how to move in and out of them. This is not a complete list. This has definitely been an emphasis on non-pharmaceutical ways to support these different brainwave activities. I think the big takeaway from all of this is to recognize that when you understand the different brain states and when you're in them and you know how to lean in the direction of the state you need to be in for a particular task, that kind of knowledge is going to be very supportive to you, whether or not you do neurofeedback or whether you're starting to focus on meditation or changing your diet or moving into shifting your exercise routine to support more beta wave activity. All those things will support an overall sense of well-being, and it gives you the ability to be in the driver's seat of your life because you know you have multiple ways to move yourself into these different brain states. Okay, that's it. I hope that was helpful to you. I want to encourage you to grab the cheat sheet for this episode. If you're interested, you can go to drummerandthegreatmountain.com/episode 115. And if you'd like to join us, we have our upcoming wellness workshop that will be happening on April 5th. It'll be starting on April 5th. And you can find out more at drummerandthegreatmountain.com/workshop. So until next time, be well.
Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to learn more about the book, The Drummer and the Great Mountain, visit drummerandthegreatmountain.com. To join us on social media, click the links at the top of the homepage. Help us spread the word. We're a small press and reviews really help. If you've been enjoying the podcast or the book, consider writing a review on iTunes, Amazon, Goodreads, or your podcast app. If you're new to the podcast and want to quickly get up to speed on the concepts we discuss, check out our free 5-day mini course. Visit drummerandthegreatmountain.com/mini course. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover on future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Please send us an email at info@drummerandthegreatmountain.com.